So I'm Rachel from the Davis Food Co-op, and I'm here today with Lorin Kaliski, owner of Upper Crust Bakery and a newly elected member of the Davis Food Co-op's board.
Yes.
How are you doing today, Lorin?
I'm good, thanks.
It's good to hear. There have been a lot of changes for local businesses because of the pandemic that's happened, and how has that affected things for you guys here?
So, you know, there's definitely big changes. We closed our store. You know, we had this set up as a little cafe with seating, so we closed to the public pretty early on, before the lockdown actually started, and did a quick kind of pivot. We do a lot of farmers markets. That's kind of our main business historically. So we have a small fleet of vehicles and a pretty hefty staff, and so we kind of took the assets that we had and switched over to a model of doing deliveries, local deliveries in Davis and curbside pickup, and that's worked out really well for us. The community's been super supportive, and we have a growing list of folks who get regular deliveries every week. And so I feel a little guilty saying it, but actually business has been good for us during the pandemic.
Right.
And yeah, we've been managing for sure.
And for those that aren't familiar with Upper Crust, can you tell us a little bit about your bakery?
Yeah, so we've been baking in Davis for 35 years. The bakery was founded by my parents in the mid-'80s. And we, like I said, mostly did farmers markets. Early on, we had a good wholesale delivery business also. We delivered to restaurants and grocery stores all over the Sacramento area. And but farmers markets has kind of historically been our main business.
Right.
And I grew up in Davis and grew up with a bakery and lived away for many years. I lived in the Bay Area, and then I moved to France, and I lived in France for almost 14 years and started with my family over there. And then I moved back to California in 2013. First to the Bay Area for a couple of years, and then back to Davis in 2015, and I started getting back involved with the bakery. My parents are getting older and could use the help, and slowly just got more involved and ended up taking it over, and my parents kind of are still very involved, although I try to keep them at home now, but they get to work as much or as little as they want rather than having to work all the time.
It's a kind thing for a son to do. So your father started Upper Crust in 1986, was a hobbyist bread baker at home, so clearly quite passionate.
Yeah.
You move away from Davis for university, go to Paris, come back, eventually find yourself back in Davis in 2015. How did that experience abroad influence what you brought to Upper Crust Bakery?
Yeah, that's a great question. My professional background is not in baking, but I grew up with the bakery, but I was doing technology and marketing and product development, technology product development for my professional career. And in Paris, that was mostly what I was doing, but I fell in love with Paris, and I fell in love with a Parisian, and ended up getting married in France, and my two daughters were born in Paris. So when we moved back to Davis, or moved to Davis for the rest of them, the French influence is definitely very strong in our family. We speak a lot of French at home, and we love French baking. And so, my parents always also had a love for France and instilled that in me, and that's kind of why I ended up there. So there was always a bit of a French influence in what they did, but when I came back and took over the bakery, we really made a concerted effort to do real French baking and traditional French viennoiserie and baguettes and other things that we had fairly high standards, I would say. My wife, the funny thing that I say is that it took us a long time to kind of get baguettes right.
Yeah.
It turns out, big surprise to my wife, that it's a lot harder than it may seem. And so the first baguettes that we made, she tasted them, and her comment was that they were almost as good as the worst baguettes in Paris.
Oh my goodness.
But we've done a lot of iterations since then, and now our baguettes, we do these special baguettes called Sarmentine baguettes that are really, really yummy and unique. And then our viennoiserie, the croissant and chocolate croissant and those kinds of things. People rave about them, and they meet my wife's standards. So that's the
Nice. That's the gold standard, I would imagine. This is almost just a personal question because I really love baked goods. I'm pretty sure weren't baguettes something that came into being after like World War II, and there's like some specialized machinery for them. So are they quite hard? I know that you steam in the oven to get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know the kind of historical background for baguettes. I would have guessed that they probably predated the war quite a lot.
Imagine.
I know that certainly after the war there was a big kind of global push to use more processed, commercially produced commodity things like white flour. And a baguette is a white flour product traditionally. A real French baguette is made with white flour. Our baguettes, these Sarmentine baguettes, use some white flour, but there's also some whole grain flour in them. You know, the process of making baguettes is a very traditional process,
right.
And they're long fermentation bread, so you let the dough sit overnight usually before you form the loaves and bake them off. And the actual kind of process of forming the loaves is there are traditional ways to do that that make a big difference in the outcome. So when we started making traditional baguettes here, we're doing it in that real French way, where they're put onto large sheets of linen. It's called a couche, a linen couche, and they're left to proof or rise in these linen couche, and they're transferred to the oven loader and then put into the oven. It's a deck oven, Hearthstone deck oven, so it has a big thick stone at the bottom of each deck that retains a lot of heat, and it also has steam in the oven, so you give the bread a blast of steam right at the beginning, and it gives the crust a really nice crispy texture.
My mouth is watering. Thank you for indulging me. I'm a little food obsessed, so I simply had to know. So you make the choice with making Sarmentine baguettes, I think I said that right, to bring in like a whole wheat flour.
It's actually a whole spelt flour
Whole spelt
that we're
flour?
using in that product, yeah.
And there seems to be that choice across a lot of your products to use like more like healthful
Right.
ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're big proponents of whole grains. We use a percentage of whole grain flour in most of our products. There's a couple that don't, but most of our products use at least a percentage of whole grain flour. And we also try to use locally produced flour, locally grown grain and locally milled grain. We actually just started milling grain here. We bought a couple of small professional mills, and we're starting to mill our own grain right here.
I'm not sure if there's any other bakeries in town that can boast that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's definitely something to highlight. So what are some of your specialties here, like the items you're most proud of?
Yeah, certainly the French stuff. I mean, my family's Jewish, so we have some of the Jewish tradition also that permeates our product mix. So we do things like challah bread, and we have rugula that we offer, and other kind of traditional Jewish deli rye breads. But I think that the French baking is really kind of where my heart lies, and the Sarmentine baguette, which is this interesting, unique baguette that has a bit of a story behind it, and its popularity is just kind of taken off. Certainly in Davis, we have a lot of loyal customers for the Sarmentine baguette now. So
I can imagine.
the baguette and the croissant, I would say, are difficult things to master.
Do you have a favorite thing to make, or even just your favorite thing to sneak a bite of?
I love making baguettes because the process and the technique of shaping them is something that you do repetitively, and each time you roll out a baguette, you kind of mentally give it a rating, like, oh man, I messed up that one a little bit over here, or that one was pretty close to perfect, and it's kind of like you're really kind of pushing yourself to master the process and get the end result as close to perfect as you can. So that's what I love doing, and those are fabulous to eat also. But I love sweets and the viennoiserie. A chocolate croissant in the morning, there's nothing better than a cup of coffee and a chocolate croissant.
You're telling me? So that fine attention to detail and that really high standard is something that I think sets Upper Crust apart from other places here in Davis. You're clearly forward-thinking business, and as a business owner, you're someone who's really thinking about how the food scene in Davis can be shaped better in the future. Do you want to speak a little bit to that, or maybe address what Davis needs to do to become more of a culinary destination in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a great foundation in Davis that we can build on, and there's certainly this excitement about food in our region, and I always say that we are privileged to live in this region, because it's really one of the few regions in the world where a kind of farm-to-table lifestyle is actually possible, right? We have such a diversity of agricultural production in Northern California and in the California Central Valley, and it rivals the diversity of any other place on Earth, really. So we have this great foundation based on where we live, and that's kind of permeated the culture here. I mean, we have this buzz in Sacramento, where it's kind of been marketing itself as America's farm-to-fork capital for the past several years, and it's really kind of a whole process and dynamic that has taken hold since, I would say, the kind of first thing that sparked it was chez Panisse in the 1970s and the advent of California cuisine, which then spread throughout the Bay Area and throughout California, and helped with the development of Napa Valley as a tourism destination, a foodie tourism destination, and then you have Sonoma and Lorin and these counties and regions that have created really dynamic food scenes and food entrepreneurial scenes. Like you have local food products coming out of a lot of these places that have become national brands. Strauss Creamery and Lorin, and there's a lot of dairy in Lorin. You've got the Cowgirl Creamery also with cheese, and I think that here in Davis we have a tremendous potential also because of the university and the fact that we have the leading agricultural university in the country, and the whole region. I mean, and our county also has some tremendous assets. I mean, we have the Cape Valley with pioneers in organic farming, Cape Organic and Full Belly Farm, which have been doing organic farming since the 1970s. So, I think Davis as a city maybe has a little ways to go to kind of catch up with its neighbors, but we have some great assets to build on.
Right, and when one walks into your bakery, you can see this passion for local. On the shelves, you have products from Yolo Press, from Good Humus and Full Belly, and even Pure Honey Co.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see it as like your duty as a local business to support other local businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it started really with my parents, and they were buying local less because it was the cool thing to do, and more just because it was convenient, and they were buying locally grown and milled flour from a mill in Woodland, and when I came back to Davis and took over the bakery, it just seemed like we need to start talking about this, right?
Yeah.
So we have this great experience at farmers markets all over Northern California. We do like 40 or 45 farmers markets every week,
Right.
and have all of these contacts at different farms and food producers, agricultural producers, and it's through those connections mostly that we source a lot of our ingredients. And then when we opened this facility and the cafe and boutique at the beginning of 2019, we wanted to highlight a lot of those products. So we brought in some of these kind of more shelf-stable things like jams and honeys and olive oil to sell.
Awesome. Speaking of tasty things coming out of your bakery, I know that you guys have been innovating a little bit, adding things like the pizza night, and with that constantly reinventing the dough to try and get it even closer to perfect.
Yeah.
Are there more innovations that you have planned?
Well, I mean, I'm sure pizza night was immensely popular, and we're dying to bring it back. We're not really in a great spot to bring it back at the moment, but pizza night will come back eventually, and we'll start doing pizza again. In terms of other innovation, yeah, I mean, we're definitely trying new things all the time in terms of our product mix. We're going to be offering some more French stuff pretty soon. We've got some nice things in the works. And then, we want to, the delivery model in Davis has been really good, and so we want to expand that and make more people aware of our bakery and the services and products that we offer. And there's a lot of people, I think, that live in Davis that don't shop with us, don't shop with the Davis Food Co-op, and are really missing out on some great assets in Davis.
Yeah, not for the video, just to say it. That's something we're trying to figure out too, is like how we have so many people in our community that love food or total foodies and are just unaware of the abundance that's in arm's reach for them.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's maybe easier in certain respects to go to Nugget or Safeway on your way into or out of town, but the benefits and the kind of advantages of shopping at the co-op and at local businesses like ours, I think there's a potential to help people understand what those are.
Yeah, and the sense of connection that they can feel.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, and thank you for speaking with us about your bakery today, Lorin.
Thank you.
If you guys want to find out more about Upper Crust Baking, you can go to their website,
ucbaking.com.
Okay.
We've got all the social media channels. I think we're probably most active on Instagram. So Instagram, it's Upper Crust Baking, and we're also Upper Crust Baking on Facebook, and I think Twitter is UCBC is our Twitter.
and you can find them at local farmers markets throughout Sacramento and Davis.
Absolutely.
And in CSA farm boxes.
Yeah, and at the Davis Food Co-op.